Hey guys, what's up? I'm Noah, this is Analog Resurgence, and today I'm taking a look at slide projectors. So slide film is a type of film that when you shoot it and you get it properly processed, then it comes back to you as an actual positive image on the film that you actually shot in your camera. So if you actually take the time to shoot a roll of slide film, then you have all these little frames on the film that you actually shot in your camera. There's no editing or manipulation of the images on your film. And of course, when you've actually shot slide film, then you can project them using this. This is a slide projector, a Kodak Carousel slide projector. And the Carousel is maybe one of the most popular and well-known slide projectors ever made. And these machines allow you to actually project the individual frames of the slides that you shot in order to see how great those images look at full size. Now let's break down this process just a little bit further. First of all, you have to shoot an actual roll of slide film, something like Provia or Velvia or Ektachrome. And I've explored this kind of film in the past in a previous video that kind of delves more into shooting it and what kind of stuff is out there for you to be able to get to shoot, and just really how the whole thing works. Now once you shoot this roll and then you take it to the lab or you develop it yourself at home, then you're going to get back your processed roll that has positive images on it instead of negative ones. Now in order to be able to actually project the frames on the slide film that you've shot, then you need to have the frames individually mounted. And you do that by using one of these, and these are slide mounts. Now there's a few different types of these out there. There's these really simple plastic ones. There's ones that actually have glass in them, and a lot of the time older slides were just actually mounted in cardboard slide mounts instead. So if you're lucky, the lab that you actually send your slide film to might have the ability to mount the slides for you in the lab. They might actually have an automated slide mounting machine, and that is super cool and saves you a lot of time. Or you can just buy your own slide mounts and then mount the film yourself at home, which just involves a little bit of time and also being super careful because it involves a pair of scissors and your film. So for mounting, we have to cut up our individual frames just really carefully, and then we put them into our mounts and close them up. Sometimes mounts would just have a slot at one side, so you just have to kind of carefully slide the frames into them. Some mounts will actually say which side needs to face the lens, so we know how to mount the film. See, the film has a base side and an emulsion side. The emulsion side is the side that actually has the image exposed onto it, and it usually looks kind of matte or dull, and sometimes you can see some of the image actually etched onto the emulsion. And then the actual base side of the film just looks kind of glossy in comparison to the emulsion side. So when projecting, the emulsion of the slide needs to be facing out towards the lens of the projector. So just keep that in mind when you're mounting and then loading your projector later on. So then we have our actual mounted slides, and each one just holds an individual frame inside of them that you can kind of hold up to the light and take a look at, and then you will just see exactly what you shot in your camera. This also means that your slides are ready to be projected, and you can start to load them into your slide projector. So this is a Kodak Carousel slide projector. And the carousels really have two kind of main components to them. The actual slide tray that holds all of your slides individually in their mounts that can just be inserted into these slots throughout the ring. And then the actual projector, which has the bulb and the electronics and the lens and everything else that you need in order to project the actual slides. The projectors themselves aren't too expensive depending on the models that you find, and there are a bunch of models out there, especially for the carousels. See, slide projectors were really used a lot for educational purposes in places like schools and libraries before digital became more prominent and easier to use. So now if you're actually trying to track down and buy one of these slide projectors, then a lot of these have just been donated or gotten rid of by schools or libraries, especially within the last 20 years or so. So in order to actually take a look at our mounted slides, all we have to do is load them into the slide trays on the projector. Now, as I said, when you're actually loading these into the tray, you want to make sure that the emulsion side of your film is facing outwards, and also that the image is upside down when you're putting it in. This means that when you're actually projecting the images, they will be properly oriented when they're being projected through the lens of the projector. So we put the tray onto the projector and it clicks in, and then all we have to do is set up the projector on a surface in front of an empty wall or screen and then just turn it on. The carousel will rotate the tray on the top, and it has a mechanism that will pull the slide down in front of the lens. Then when you advance it, the slide will pop up back into the tray and the next one will move into place. Now the carousel is actually a pretty good system because it means you can kind of advance the tray one way Or if you want to reverse and see previous slides, then you can go backwards as well. So Kodak made a bunch of these carousel projectors over the course of the product's lifespan. And they made a bunch of really interesting kind of accessories that would go along with these as well, because they weren't just for kind of amateur home viewing. A lot of them, and especially more professional models, were set up to be able to be used for big presentations in like auditoriums and just different settings like that. So Kodak was making these carousel models from the 1960s all the way up until the early 2000s when they finally discontinued them. And they made different models with different names as well, from the Carousel to the Ectographic and the Ecta Pro and things like the Ecta Lite. And again, they range from kind of consumer grade models all the way to more professional ones that were used in colleges and universities for just big presentation. And in the 1970s, they also produced the Pocket Carousel, which was a carousel model that was much smaller and took smaller slide trays and only projected 110 film slides. 110 film is also a format that I've looked at in the past as well, and it was just a much smaller format of film. And of course, 110 slides now are much less prominent than they were in the 1970s. Some of the accessories that you could get were things like different lenses that you could put onto these projectors, which meant that you could just kind of remove the lens that it came with, and then you could put on something like this, which is just a zoom lens for the projector. And that meant that you could kind of set it up to be a little more versatile and used in some different spaces. You could also get remotes for these projectors, which meant that you could kind of set them up and sit at a distance from them as opposed to using the projection buttons on the side here. You could simply advance or reverse the tray on the projector just by using the little kind of trigger here that just had a couple of buttons on it. And there were even higher end models that allowed the use of wireless remotes, so then you didn't have to be anywhere near the actual unit in order to do your presentation. There are also some bigger units like a dissolve unit, and the dissolve unit would allow you to set up and do transitions between slides as you were projecting your presentation. And it allowed you to plug two different projectors into this box, so then you could kind of transition between the projectors as they were advancing their slides. There was also a stack loader tray that you could use to load a stack of slides instead of using a standard circular tray. And there were also a variety of different accessories that let you kind of synchronize audio when you were transitioning between your slides as well. And these were different units or sometimes just little cables that allowed you to hook up your projector in unison with like a tape recorder, and then as you were recording onto the tape and transitioning between your slides, the projector would emit a signal onto your tape every time you transition between a slide. And so then you could record audio or narration or something that goes along with the presentation, and then when you played back that recording, every time it hit that signal, then it would transition the slide along with the narration that you had recorded when you were setting it up. So if we take an actual look inside of the projector, then there's a few different components that are just kind of important to understand. If we open up this compartment on the bottom of the projector, then we can kind of see how the system works a little bit. One of the main kind of components that can kind of fail or break pretty easily on these projectors is the actual bulb. And a lot of the time, these bulbs aren't actually too expensive or hard to track down. And I can put some information in the description about the bulbs that these projectors would take. But also, it's important to kind of do your own research on the specific model of slide projector or just projectors in general that you pick up. Because again, different models will sometimes take different bulbs. So the Carousel is a really well-designed, popular, and kind of recognizable piece of equipment when it comes to photography. But Kodak also isn't the only company that made slide projectors. So of course, the Carousel is a really popular one. But you could also get projectors that loaded with straight trays that advance along the side like this one. And there were also models that took slide cubes. And these were cubes that held the slides in a stack and would be removed through a slot at the bottom of the projector. The slide projectors have been around for a long time, and maybe the Carousel is one of the easier and fancier ones to track down, but companies like Bell & Howell and Agfa and Gaff and Pentacon and so many more made different models. Now for all you medium format shooters out there, you can get medium format slide projectors as well. See, if you're shooting on a medium format camera and you shoot slide film, for which you can get Provia and Velvia currently, and you're shooting in a camera that will take 6x6 square images, then you can actually track down 6x6 square mounts for those kinds of slides. They are a little more expensive and sometimes harder to find, and the projectors are definitely much more expensive and harder to find. Hasselblad, for example, produced a Carousel-esque model called the PCP-80 for 120 slides. But other companies like Rolly also made models as well that are just a little more affordable. So medium format slides are a whole other world, of which I unfortunately haven't really had the chance to delve into, as much as I would love to get one of those projectors and be able to start shooting some of those slides for projection. But shooting and projecting slides, whether it's medium format or 35mm or even on 110 film if you've got yourself a pocket carousel model, is really just such a fun and cool experience and a different way to kind of experience your slides and the images that you take, as opposed to just kind of getting them and having the film scanned and then posting stuff to Instagram. So try and track down one of these carousel projectors because they're really fun and they're really kind of just easy to load up and use, and they're also just really popular, which means that there are kind of the easier models to try and track down and find for yourself. But really, any slide projector is kind of worth it if it's up and running and has a good bulb and a functioning lens and you have all the components for it, because being able to project your slides at all is really gonna kind of change the way that you look at some of your photos. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, as I continue to look at stuff like this and motion picture stuff and Polaroids and instant photography. And if you're at all interested in supporting the channel, then you can hop over to the Patreon for Analog Resurgence. There is a link in the description of this video. Any sort of support will help me to focus on more of this stuff in the future, or maybe get into doing some of that medium format slide stuff that I was talking about. And if there's any sort of topics in general, whether it be stuff that you want to see me focus on or feature or review or look at or learn about in the videos on the channel, then you can comment down below on this video and any of the videos that you see. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.